Welcome to KashFlow. In this video, I'm going to give you a tour on how you can use the software to manage your business's financial information. Firstly, when we log in, we will see our dashboard. In here, we can see a financial overview, so we'll be able to see a list of all of our bank accounts and the balances within here, any money that's owed to us, the money we owe, and a total figure. This account is new, so we have no financial information in here as yet. On the right hand side, we can see our profit and loss, a graph in here, and we can choose a graph on which account that we'd like to see listed below here. If we manage quotes within our business, we can see a status of all our quotes and the quote summary screen here, and also any recent changes and additions that have been made to the software. You can move these around on the front page, so you can choose how you want to view this front dashboard. Next module on the left hand side that we're going to go to is our customer module. So to start doing quotes and invoices within KashFlow, we first need to create customers. If I click on the customer module on the left hand side, we will already see that I've got 2 customers listed in here, and the value that they've done with my business is currently £0. To create new customer records, all we need to do is hit the create button at the top of the screen. If I hit the create button in here, all I need to do is type in the name of the customer. So this is going to be customer 3. The system automatically creates a customer code for you, and then you can choose where this client came in from. So I'm going to say this customer came in from my website. And then all you need to do is click the create customer button, and that customer record has now been created. Once you've created a customer record, the name will come through, and all you need to do is type in an address, put in their postcode and their contact details, their name, and again you can put in their phone number and various other information in here. You've also got the option to add in a separate delivery address if needed. If you switch across to the option tab, we can then put any default references we want in here. Again, we can see the client came in from the website. We can change their payment terms and conditions. We can add in their VAT information in here as well, and any discounts that this client may receive. If we go to the next tab, if you need to use CIS to track deductions for this particular customer and use CIS within your business, you can hit the apply CIS button in here, put in your CIS rate, and you can put in the relevant UTR, company reg numbers, etc. Against the customer record in here. And under invoices and stats, we'll be able to see a full list of invoices and quotes, plus the statistics of the last invoiced overdue amount, etc. from our clients within the customer screen. If we go back to our customer list here and click into customer 1, we'll be able to see that information filled out. So if I go into the contact details section, we can see that their address is listed in here. I've got their contact name, and we can see once we've added in their email address and their postcode, I've got a direct link through to Google Maps. So if I'm using KashFlow on my phone or my tablet, I can get access to their address straight by linking it through from here. And also, if we click on this button, it will open up my own email editor, and I can just send this client an email directly. That's how easy it is to create customers in KashFlow. Once we've created a customer, we'll then have the ability to create quotes and invoices for them. If I click into the quotes module on the left hand side of the screen, we will see that we can create a new quote. So from here, I can just click create a quote, or I can click create button at the top right hand side of the screen. We can see we've got an option for categories here. If I click on the category button, these are the default quote categories that we've got listed within KashFlow. We can add new categories as and when we want. All I need to do is just click on the add button on the right hand side, and then we can add in a new category. So we can just put closed here, lost, and I'm just going to put that we lost that to price, and you can choose what kind of flag or identifier we want against that. I'm just going to use a red flag, and then we can save that, and that category has now been saved. If I close those down, so we can create a quote directly from here. Alternatively, if you go to the customer module on the left hand side and click into the customer record, you will have the option to create a quote at the top of the screen. I'm just going to create a quote from here, so I'm going to click create. It's going to bring in the customer details and their address and it's brought through that customer because we did it from the customer screen. Alternatively, you can just drop down list and this will bring up a full list of your customers. If you are out and about and using this on your phone and you wanted to create a customer quickly, you can just click the plus sign here and then we can just add in a new customer. So I can just add in customer 4, hit create, and that's now created a new customer record for me, and then I can just add in then their address within here. So the quote number is quote number 1. I can change the quote number if I wish to, and it will be sequentially added from there onwards. I can also put in a reference in here, and you can just free type into that. The date, so the date is the 1st of October, but I can change the date if needed. We can choose the category in here, so as you can see, the category I added, which was lost to price, is now in my list, but this is just going to be a draft quote. And then we can just add line items to this quote. By default, our first sales code is 411, which is generally sales, but I've relabeled this to general work, and we can see mine pre-fills a 1 day at general work at £500 a day. If I change the quantity button within here, we can see that the value has changed, and you can free type over this information at any point. We can just add additional lines, so we can make these as complex as we need to. And if I just click on the services button I've got in here, we can see we've got a separate tab for products, and we've got various products that my company provides. So I can just say we're going to be doing a boiler change, and we can see that the description has come through on the quote, and the rate that I charge has come through for that as well. At any point you can change the value within here, so I can say, bearing in mind they've paid for 2 days work, I'm going to discount down that. I'm just going to say we're going to do that for £200, and you can see I've typed in the gross amount and it's calculated the net amount in there and the VAT applied. All I need to do then is just click save on the top right hand side of the screen, and that quote has now been saved into the system. We then have the ability to add various notes and files against it, and we can email and print that out. So if I just click on the email button here, this just brings up my email editor. I can type in the client's email address, or if I would have recorded that in their customer record, it would come up automatically, and it just attaches that quote as a simple PDF document, and we can see the details listed on that quote. If I just close that down and just go back into the quotes module on the left hand side, we will see the quote there, we can see the category for that and any references, and we can see the value to that as well. If we go to the customer screen on the left hand side and click on customer 4, if we go to invoices and stats now, we can now see that quote listed in there as £1,400. And if we go to our client dashboard on the left hand side, where we've got our quote summary, we will see that we now have a quote in the draft section for that value. If I just scroll down here, we can now see I have a draft quote in there at £1,400. So if we go back into our quotes then and just click on that quote, if the client decides that they want to move forward with that, so I've emailed that through to them, they say yes, I'm quite happy with that, I want to go ahead, we can then just hit the convert to invoice button at the top of the screen, and it will pop up and say, are you sure you want to convert this to an invoice? If I now hit OK, I've now created an invoice in the system, and you can now see I have the ability to add a payment against that, and I can email it and print it off as and when I need to. And now if we click on the invoice screen on the left hand side, we can see the value of that, and the status of that is unpaid. To add a new invoice into KashFlow, we follow the same procedure as we do for creating quotes. So if while we're in the invoicing module or the customer screen, we will see at the top we have the option to create. So if I just create a new invoice from here, we can see it's gone to the next sequential number, so this is now invoice number 2, and again you just select the customer you want from the drop down list, and you can see it's brought through their address from their customer record, the date and the due date, so we have 28-day payment terms against this customer, and again we can just add line items to this, so we can add some general work. I'm going to add in some services into here again, so this is going to be a kitchen fitting, and that's put my price down for that. And again, I'm not going to make any amendments to this. I can just hit save on the right hand side, and that invoice has now been saved into the system. That's how quick and easy it is to create those invoices, and then if I want to print that off as a PDF or if I want to email it, that's what my invoice is going to look like. We can customize those invoice templates, and if you go down to the settings menu on the left hand side and scroll down to PDF themes, we can now click into that invoice template. We can change the font size, we can choose whether or not we want to include our phone number and email address, and if I go to images, I will have the option to upload my company logo. So you can just click on that and choose a file on your desktop and upload your company logo, and that's now going to appear on the left hand side of the invoice. Alternatively, if you want to create a template on Word, you can then include that image, and we can just upload an image that we've created in Word, and our invoice information will just print on top of that. We can also change the borders and margins, so we can choose where the text is going to appear on the quote or invoice, and we can add in any additional text boxes if we wish to, and we can change the field names as well. So I don't actually have a quantity line, so it's a description is what we're going to see first, and then if I scroll down and I'm happy with that, I can just save and exit out of that. Now if we go to the invoices module now on the left hand side of the screen, we'll be able to see a full list of invoices that we've created. So we've created 2 invoices so far, and if I just click on customer 4, which is the invoice we created earlier, if I click on my email editor now and just bring this up and open what that invoice is going to look like, we can now see this uses my customized template that I've built within Word. We can see that we have a Pay Now button on here, so the client can now click on that link and make a direct payment via debit or credit card. Okay, so you can make those templates look like however you want them to. If we go through to the customer module now, where we saw the invoices listed earlier, we can see that this client has an outstanding balance of $1,200, this client has $1,400, and if I click into that customer record and go to invoices, we can now see that invoice listed against there. So that's how easy it is to manage quotes and invoices within KashFlow. To manage suppliers and customers, we follow exactly the same process. So we click on the supplier module on the left hand side, and again we can see that I've got 2 suppliers already created. To create a new supplier, we just click on the create button on the right hand side of the screen. Once we click into here, all I need to do is type in a supplier name. So I'm just going to type in supplier 3, and it's going to go and create a code for me, and then I just hit create a supplier, and that supplier is now created. We then have the option to put in all their contact details, any other information, so we can store their bank account information. If we need to make back payment to them, I can store their bank information. We can put in their payment terms and conditions, default purchase codes, what I typically buy from this supplier, and we'll be able to see a full list of purchases and stats listed in here as well. So to create a new purchase invoice, all we do is click on purchases on the left hand side of the screen. Again, we can see an option here to create a new purchase. All I do is click create a purchase, and then we can choose the purchase invoice number, the supplier, and again we can add a new supplier if we need to just by hitting this button, put in a reference. Our payment terms and conditions have come through on the right hand side, and I can just add line items to that, and we can see I've got boilers in here, and then the descriptions come through. So I'm going to buy 1 boiler, and we can see the price of that has come through. And if we change the quantity, it's just going to change the overall value, but we can change and overwrite the rate that we're paying on there, so we can change the details. And then all we do is hit save on the right hand side, and that purchase invoice is now sitting in the system, total dues 960, and I can email that across, or I can print that and send it across to my supplier directly. If you do a repeat invoicing and purchases, so if you're doing similar transactions all the time, at the top on both pages you can see you'll have the option to copy. So if I hit the copy button, I can now copy that to a new purchase, and that's now going to create purchase number 2, and then I can either leave it as the same supplier, or we could just say change the supplier and change any other details and hit save. So if you're doing a lot of repeat transactions, and it's very, very easy just to quickly replicate a sales or a purchase invoice within the system. And we can see now we've clicked on purchases on the left hand side, we can see the 2 purchase invoice we've just created there, and we can see the status of those are unpaid within the system. If we're recording manual payments against these transactions, then I can just click in to a sales or a purchase invoice, and on the bottom right hand side you'll see you'll have the option to add a payment. If you click add payment, you can then record the payment date. You can put the amount in there, so if it was a deposit or part payment, I could overwrite that if I want to. We can say which bank account that payment went into, and then we can choose the payment method, and then type any notes against that and hit save, and you'll be able to see that payment has now been recorded. At the top of the screen we can now see that that is logged as paid, so if we click on the purchases module on the left, the status of that is now paid. If you need to send across a payment confirmation where the payment is listed, you've got the option to print or email. So if I hit email next to the payment, we can see that it attaches a remittance advice, and if I click into that, we can see what that remittance advice is going to look like. So there you go, it's got my remittance advice, so it confirms the payment that I've made to the supplier. And I can just email that or send it across on another email. So that's how easy it is to manage suppliers and purchases within KashFlow. Next module we'll go to is the bank. So if I click on bank on the left hand side, we can see that I've got 2 bank accounts listed. So by default we're going to have the current account, and I've added in my business account in there. To add in a new bank account, all we do is hit add new account on the top right hand side of the screen, and in here we can just give that account a name. So this is just going to be my expense account. It's automatically going to create the next account code, and we can put an icon in here. So we got listings of various banks in here. I'm just going to give my little piggy bank sign. We can put in our reconciliation date, so the start date of the account is going to be today, and I can just then go and hit save on the top right hand side, and we can see that account has now been created. If I want to start recording expense transactions, all I need to do is go to view and add while we're in here, and then I can put the date of the expense, and then in here I can go and choose what that expense is going to be. So I can just say this is going to be travel, and comment, I can just put train to Leeds in here, how much the value was, and then we can key in the VAT rate, which is 20%, so it's going to calculate the VAT, and then if you just hit the plus sign on the right hand side of the screen, we can see that that transaction has now been added to my bank. So to repeat those transactions, all we do is again just hit code in here, and I'm just going to go to hotel, comment, hotel in Leeds, how much it was, the VAT rate, and then hit plus, and that has now been added, and we can see that is changing the balance of my expense account. So it's very, very easy just to quickly add in transactions by choosing the date, what kind of transaction it is, putting in a comment, money in, money out, VAT, and hitting plus. And now if we go back to our bank screen, we'll see my expense account has got a balance of minus £300. We do have the option to use bank feeds as well, so you can actually integrate KashFlow with your online banking. To do that, all you need to do is where it says bank feed next to the relevant account, if you just click on activate, this will take us through to the bank feed section. So in here, all we need to do is choose our bank account. So if we just scroll down, we can see a full list of accounts, or you can search for your bank if you can't find it in here. And let's say this was Halifax. If I just click on this select button on the right hand side, all I need to do then is key in my username and password and memorable information for my online banking. Once I've done that, that account will now be linked to my online banking. If we go back to my bank module, we can see that my current account has already been attached, so we can see that the button here is changed from activate to import. So if I just click on the import button on here, all I need to do is import my transactions into the bank. So I can see my last 4 digits on the account here, and I can see my account balance as of yesterday, but at no point of my online banking credentials stored within the system. All I need to do is go in and say I want to import transactions from the 1st of April to the end of April. So we just choose the date range we want to import and then click the load transaction button. That's now going to go away to my bank and it's just going to pull those transactions directly through into my bookkeeping system. And that's the information that's come through on the bank statement. So basically, instead of having to go through on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis and add in those transactions manually, we can now create those transactions directly from our bank statement. So what this has done here, this has created a rule. I've already set a rule up in the system to say every time that you see my rent going out of my bank, please post that transaction directly to rent. To match these other transactions, all we need to do is hit on the match button in the middle of the screen. So if I hit match on here, we've got a couple of invoices. Obviously it doesn't match any of those. So all you do is hit the create button at the top of the screen because the transaction doesn't quite exist yet. Hit the transaction on the right hand side and then just type in where that needs to go. So that's interest received into my bank. We can choose the VAT rate that's applicable and then hit create. And we can now see that interest that's coming in has gone straight to my interest received. If you had any invoices in the system or purchases that match these amounts, then they will automatically match them on the right hand side. Alternatively, if I didn't have an invoice yet for this, I can then just hit the match button and then we can go and create. So I can say I want to create an invoice for customer 1 and we can choose the code we want to use for that. And then I can just click create and now that's going to go and create an invoice for me in my software. And then all I need to do then is hit the import now button and it's going to import those transactions into KashFlow. We've made a quick process on how to bring these in by the ability to add in matching rules. So at the top of this screen we've got matching rules. So if I click into here, we've got an auto assign rule which is always turned on, so that's always going to try and automatically match the transactions that come in, and below we've got some other rules that I've created. So we can see we've got my rule for rent which we could see was matched off automatically. I've got one here for PayPal, so if I click into that it basically says every time you see money going out of my bank that says PayPal on my bank statement, I want you to post a transaction directly to PayPal purchases with the correct VAT amount. And then if I just click enable rule, I've now turned that one on. We've now got some other rules within there as well. So where we saw the interest, every time I see money coming in that says interest, I want you to post a bank transaction to interest received. So if I now go turn on that rule within the software as well, that's now turned that rule on. So you can create these rules. All you need to do is look at your bank statement and look at the repeat transactions that come in and out on a regular basis, and then we just go and create these rules manually. You can see I've got one for other here as well that says every time you see money going out that says cash flow, I want you to post a transaction to other and just hit save. Oh, just going to turn that one on and hit save. So once those matching rules are enabled, if we just go back into our bank feed and we're going to go from April the 1st to the end of April, load transactions, we can now see that the rules we set up there, the rent, the PayPal interest, have assigned automatically, and then we can import those transactions. So if I just hit import now, we can see that 3 transactions are imported, 4 of those transactions were ignored, and if I go to April 2014 and hit go, we can see those transactions are now in my bank. If you need to make any amendments once they're in your bank, you can just click on the transaction itself and then you can go and change the code where it needs to be posted to, or the date, or anything you need to change, and then hit update, and that's going to make those changes within the system. And now if we hit bank on the left hand side, we'll see on the right hand side we'll now have the ability to go and reconcile our bank. If we click on the dashboard on the left hand side now, we'll be able to see some of the things that we've done within the system. So we'll be able to see a list of invoices, so we can see I've got 2,600 that's owed to me. I owe £960 on an outstanding purchase invoice, and we can see all of our bank balances have come through as well, and we can see a total monies that's available within the business and also our VAT liability for the current period. And on the right hand side we can now see the balances of our bank accounts changing on these graphs, and we can see our P&L for the last 6 months, and we can see what's changed on there as well. So as you can see, using it to manage your customers' quotes, invoices, your suppliers and your purchases and your bank, you can now use KashFlow to start managing the finances within your business.